Kyle Tucker is headed to the Dodgers on a 4-year, $240 million deal, which includes opt-outs after the second and third years of the deal and $30 million deferred. It is $57 million per year in net present value, which is a new record.
You can't keep getting away with it. You can't keep getting away with it. You won't.
And yet the Dodgers keep getting away with it. We'll get to the fantasy implications in a second. I have a rant of my own. I'm sure many people have similar feelings, I guess, on this Friday now that Kyle Tucker is a Dodger. But Scott, I will first turn it over to you. How are you doing? How do you feel about Kyle Tucker?
Well, I'm going to do something I don't normally do, which I'm just going to read to you what I wrote about this because I think it perfectly encapsulates everything without spending a lot of time on my usual ranting. So here we go. Kyle Tucker to the Dodgers. We're beyond parity now. It's no longer hyperbole to say it. There's no point in trying to justify the fit or rationalize the dollar amount. Quite simply, the Dodgers will get whomever they want. The best player on the market? Just assume he's theirs. Because if he's really the best player, they'll want him. The market for Kyle Tucker had begun to percolate in recent days, with the decision seemingly coming down to whether he'd take a shorter deal with a higher average annual value from the Mets or a longer deal with a lower average annual value from the Blue Jays. But in swooped the Dodgers with a 4-year, $240 million deal that was probably the best of both worlds, like it was ever going any other way. If anyone is going to make $60 million a year, with large amounts deferred, most likely, it probably shouldn't be Kyle Tucker, great as he is. But as Dodgers president Andrew Friedman once said, and is now fully embodied, if you're always rational about every free agent, you'll finish third on every free agent. Tucker was the best hitter available this offseason, and they paid what it took to get him. Now imagine the prospect package they could offer for Tarek Skubal. If you're sensing that I'm frustrated, good. It means I'm writing well. Conveying feelings through tone and style is what it's all about. But what does it say that I have those feelings as a mostly impartial observer who mostly observes baseball through a fantasy baseball lens? Shouldn't I be thrilled? Hey, everybody, a first-round pick for Tucker just got easier to justify. Lineup placement, runs in RBI, fat stacks of cash. But no, I'm just deflated. It's the kind of news that makes you no longer want to get out of bed in the morning, in the metaphorical baseball sense. Like, what's even the point of playing out this season? Better for the other teams to play sarcastically so that they can deny the Dodgers the satisfaction of winning this way. I'm not normally like this, preemptively crowning a champion in a sport that revels in the randomness of small sample outcomes. I'm the one annoyingly reminding all the knee-jerk doomsayers that the playoffs are a crapshoot and that no acquisition can protect a team from that reality. But the two-time defending World Series champions, who have already developed a reputation for cornering the market on every big-ticket talent, just signed the top free agent for a price no other team could even approach. There comes a point where anything else that happens in the world of baseball seems futile. And with that, I've said my piece. Now, deep breath, analyst hat on, and go. You couldn't ask for a better spot for Kyle Tucker's fantasy value. Gee golly, he's likely to hit cleanup for the league's most star-studded lineup with 3 future Hall of Famers consistently on base ahead of him. Dodger Stadium has turned into a great hitter's park, too, with its low fences in the corners and gradual curve to a shallow center field. It's not the venue where StatCast says Tucker would have hit the most home runs last year, but he would have hit 29 there versus the 23 he actually hit, if the math is to be believed. It's certainly a better fit for his swing than Wrigley Field, where he hit just 7 of his 22 home runs last year. Why he may even be worth drafting in the first round again, which some of us were saying from the beginning, even if the consensus disputed it. He'll need to avoid the fractured shin and fractured hand that have limited his availability and effectiveness over the past 2 years, but keeping one's bones intact generally isn't a big ask, regardless of his propensity for injury. So yes, the outlook for Tucker in fantasy is rosier today than it was yesterday. But rather than dreaming about what a career season might look like and whether you can justify taking him ahead of Corbin Carroll even, ask yourself this. What does it say about Alex Bregman that the Dodgers didn't sign him? That's it. That's my take.
And that is the end of story time with Scott White. I think you very well encapsulated a lot of the feelings that many baseball fans have, Scott. And I actually appreciate that the second half of that, where you kind of gave your fantasy analysis, you kind of did so in a sarcastic tone. It just kind of made everything that much better. I don't know how much credibility I have as a Yankee fan and whether or not I can even complain about this, because this is, I guess, what they used to do in the 90s and 2000s. I was kind of young back then, but
I think it's beyond. It's beyond.
That's how I feel as well. I didn't want to be the one to say it, so I'm happy you did. I don't want to sound dramatic, man, but when I read the tweet that he was headed to the Dodgers, I just kind of sat there for 5-10 minutes, just like in shock. For the next hour that I was, just kind of working on the rundown, it was just lifeless, emotionless. I didn't know how to feel. It was just, I was in shock the whole like leading up to this podcast. And I always knew this was a possibility, like very clearly. The Dodgers have all the money in the world and they could sign any free agent they want. I think deep down, I just didn't actually believe that it would happen. I didn't want to believe that it would happen. I wanted to believe that, the Mets and Steve Cohen would step up, or Kyle Tucker would take those years from the Blue Jays instead. And instead, that is not what happened. So I'm not mad at Kyle Tucker, man. Like, get your money. I'm always going to root for the players to get as much money as they can. I'm more so upset that other teams in baseball allowed this to happen. Did they really? I mean, I think Steve Cohen and the Mets could have afforded this. Like, they could have just went $5 million more than the Dodgers did, just like they did with Juan Soto last year. If they really wanted Kyle Tucker, like, they definitely could have made it happen. So I'm more upset that the rest of baseball allowed this to happen than really anything else.
But you understand them blowing out the bank for Juan Soto more than Kyle Tucker. I mean, Kyle Tucker's great. He's a first round caliber player. Maybe he'll be a Hall of Famer someday, but like Juan Soto is best, like generational talent good. Like, his on base skills are just rarely in the history of baseball have those been seen. So, like, I don't know, like I put it in the article, if anyone's going to make $60 million a year, or 57 or whatever it averages out to, and you got the math gets complicated because of the deferrals that the Dodgers like to use.
According to Jeff Passan, it is $57 million in present day value per year. So,
like, if anyone's going to make that, it probably shouldn't be Kyle Tucker. I think Ohtani, leaving out the deferral aspect of it, Ohtani's making more per year, averaging more per year. But then Tucker, it's just, the Dodgers can price everybody out, every other team out on anybody right now. I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, other teams spend more, but this isn't like the Freddie Freeman signing, where the amount was something you'd expect Freddie Freeman to get, maybe even a little less. This was like, people were shocked to see that the Mets were offering Kyle Tucker $40 million per year. Like, that seemed like an astronomical figure.
And the Mets got close, man. I saw the final offer from John Heyman, and he said 4 years, $220 million. Like, they were there. They were close to what Tucker actually got here. So, I mean, look, credit to them for, going that far into the negotiation and being that aggressive. But ultimately, the Mets didn't get it done. It was the Dodgers who did. And again, it's just a reminder, like, people might have forgotten by now. The Dodgers also signed Edwin Diaz earlier this offseason. Like, they are back-to-back champions with Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Yamamoto and Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow and a whole bunch of other players. And they just added arguably the best closer in baseball and a top 10 hitter in baseball, which, again, just kind of makes the season feel futile, as you pointed out, Scott. So that is the, I guess, baseball ranty part of it. I don't know that we need to get into much else from a fantasy perspective, but I guess this is a fantasy podcast.
Should I have said futile?
I never know.
Futile,
I always wonder if it's like,
futile.
did I say volatile or volatile, futile,
Volatile.
Tomato.
Yeah, it felt weird.
Eye of the beholder.
I go both ways on that word. Futile.
Yeah.
And whichever way I go, I was like, that didn't sound right coming out of my mouth,
I totally get that.
Resistance is futile.
From a fantasy perspective, Scott, you spoke to most of the things already here. It's a better park to hit in. Last year, Kyle Tucker was much better on the road than he was in Wrigley Field. So obviously getting out of Chicago is it's great for his fantasy value. And then just hitting cleanup in the best lineup in baseball. Like the biggest question here is, can he stay healthy? And last year he missed 28 games with a fracture in his right hand and then a calf strain. 2 years ago, it was a fracture in his shin that he suffered on a foul ball. So those seem kind of fluky. I don't really look at Kyle Tucker as an injury-prone player, although he has missed a lot of time the past 2 years. His NFBC ADP in January is 19, which always felt ridiculous. I had Tucker right at the 1-2 turn in a 12-team league before this signing. I just moved him up to 8th overall. I think it's totally defensible if you wanted to take him 4th or 5th in drafts.
I would agree with that. So Jose Ramirez is generally 4th, right? And I think I have Ronald Acuna 5th personally.
I think before this, there was kind of a consensus of, okay, the top 3, Judge, Ohtani, Witt, and then there's Jose Ramirez and Soto. But I think you have.
Oh, I forgot Soto. Soto. Okay. So yeah, to me, the top 5 is still clear. In some order, Judge, Ohtani, Witt, Soto, and Ramirez. Probably move Witt out of that group if it's a points league.
Yeah.
But that 5 is still set in stone for me. But right after that is where I think it's largely open to interpretation. And as I said, I was thinking Tucker. I was thinking Kyle Tucker deserved to be more on the high end of that group, but his ADP was actually in round 2, which seemed ridiculous. I think there's an argument for him as high as 6. I mean, power, speed, good chance he's going to help in batting average, and the RBI production is going to be who's batting directly in front of him. It's going to be Betts, Freeman, and Ohtani in some order. And like, that's the counting stats are going to be beyond anything we've seen from Tucker before. I think I may want to move him as high as 6. I may want to move him not just past Corbin Carroll, like I mentioned in the article, but also Ronald Acuna, even knowing how high Acuna's upside is. There's a question of how likely he is to meet it. And I think it's a bigger question than how likely Tucker is to meet his upside.
Yeah, I think that's entirely defensible. Again, I mentioned I have him at 8, so it's just behind. I have Skubal at 6 and Carroll at 7. I think it's kind of a toss-up between Carroll and Tucker. What kind of skill set do you want? Do you want more speed from someone like Carroll? Do you want maybe a little bit more power and counting stats from someone like Tucker? So it feels like a coin flip. But again, if you want to move Tucker up to like 5 or 6, I have absolutely no issue with that. The Dodgers updated lineup: Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Tucker, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, Tommy Edman, Andy Pages. Scott, does this affect anybody else on the team? I mean, it, I guess, makes it even less likely that their catcher prospect, who I'm currently blanking on his name, will ever get a real opportunity. I guess that wasn't going to happen anyway. But does this affect anybody else on the Dodgers?
I don't think anybody we really care about.
Dalton Rushing is the name I was looking for.
Yeah, but do we have much hope for him playing outfield? He didn't at all last year.
No,
No, I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, I wondered, okay, Andy Pages, he was sitting some in the playoffs, but as long as he does what he's supposed to with the bat, I think he's their center fielder. And yeah, I don't think it changes much other than Tucker's value himself, and it only helps his by a lot.